This is Gun Crank.
Well, hey there, everybody. It is the Gun Cranks. We're coming at you again on this very hot day. I think it's hot everywhere in the country. I know here the nuns are walking down the street and cursing openly. That's why I decided to dress festively and coolly.
Like Magnum PI.
It works.
Yeah. And you have a red Ferrari parked out front.
So,
right?
guys, let's talk about, let's see, old ammo, should you ever shoot it? We're going to talk about carrying guns where they say you're not supposed to carry guns. And, Roy, you got a BB gun or something, right?
Boy, howdy.
If we could harness the power of all this hot air, just think of the air gun revolution, right?
Yep.
It'd be like we wouldn't need nuclear power plants.
Stay tuned. We got all that stuff and a non sequitur from Scout the Wonder Dog. So, guys, let's get it started. Okay, guys, I've got a think question for you. The other day I had to go to a jewelry store to buy my beloved wife an anniversary gift, and I thought I would try this new national chain jewelry store. And I get to the door and there's a big sign that says, "No firearms allowed in keeping with our policy." So of course I immediately went back to my truck and I put my gun away. Right?
Yeah, because that's what I would have done.
Okay.
No, you didn't.
That's
No,
what
you
the sign
liar,
told me
pants
to
on
do.
fire. Yeah.
So, aside
Perjury.
from court buildings, federal buildings where you can go to prison for carrying a gun, what about private businesses when they tell you you shouldn't carry guns because we're sheep and we want to be a gun-free zone and be a target for bad people?
All you have to do is cross your fingers behind your back when you walk in. I have that on good authority. That's the legal advice.
I always try,
Oh,
if
okay.
it's one of those ones that has it in Vietnamese and Hmong and Arabic, and I always try to read the, Arabic, and I can't read it, so I don't even know what the sign says. I don't know.
You don't know what it says.
Yeah, so, and when they have a gun with a line through it, I always thought, to me, that looks like "don't drop your gun." So maybe
now I know.
we're misinterpreting the sign. Maybe they actually really care for us.
This is true.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
They do.
Well, this one at this national jewelry chain that I won't say the name of, but it's a national jewelry chain. It spelled out, in keeping with our policies, we don't permit weapons of any kind. Of course, I had a knife too. Heaven forbid. And you know what I did? Absolutely nothing. I continued on in the store. Now, I know in some places that's committing a crime right there if you move past that sign, but in my state it's not. It's kind of a wink wink nod nod. If they want you to leave and they know you're carrying a gun. Now, I guess should make an important point here. I was carrying concealed, which I wholly and completely believe in. So, as a retired cop, I'm sure you've dealt with these people too, Roy, of the open carrier that he's going to demonstrate his rights, and it's usually a pearl-handled, nickel-plated something or other, and they're making sure everybody can see it. I wasn't carrying that way. I just discreetly was carrying a couple of guns on me, and they didn't need to know, and they wouldn't come out.
Wait a minute. Back up.
Yeah.
A couple.
Real men carry more than one. It's like flashlights. One is none, two is one.
I didn't want to let that go by, without acknowledgement.
See, now, I'm the guy that would make fun of you for carrying three. Three's too many.
But hence
two's
the
okay.
term concealed carry, because no one should know you have that until they see the flash, of the muzzle. Well, yeah.
Look here,
what
smile.
Is that? Smile, wait for flash, so.
Wait for the flash.
I have always wondered, because every time I've gone into a place like that, and Brent, you're right, if it's a federal facility, if it's a court or something, no, you're insane. Plus, you usually have to go through the beeper machine and all that anyway. But yeah, if it's your local donut shop and there's a sign out front, because to me, those are victim accumulators. It's like you go in those kind of places, a jewelry store for crying out loud, and I have always wondered, like whenever I go to my bank here, they have a sign that says, no guns. Oh gosh, we'd be mortified. And I always think, okay, but what will really happen if a bad guy comes in and robs a place? I wouldn't intervene. I would just let him do his business, let them be the world's best witness and all that kind of stuff. But the minute he pulls a gun out and acts like he's going to kill somebody or hurt somebody, I would absolutely shoot his ass until my gun was empty. Now, though, now it's quiet, really, really quiet afterwards, and I'm standing there, and they're all mortified going like this, and there's a bad guy on the ground. Now, are they going to treat me like a hero, or are they going to be mad? I've always wondered that,
Well, that's a good question.
It's like,
hey, but well, I was going to say, but seriously, that you bring up a good point on there are levels of this question, like everything. It's nuanced and it depends. So, don't cross your fingers. That was a joke. We're kidding there. That doesn't absolve you of anything. But I mean, you guys both brought up the federal issue. I mean, that's a no-brainer. You're dealing with serious consequences if you get caught doing that, right? But states are all different.
Right.
And
you have to know the laws in your area.
How they enforce that. You need to look, is it a felony if you get caught? Is it a misdemeanor? Will you lose your permit forever for a period of time? What is the force of law behind that decision to walk through the door anyway? You need to know that, because all 46 states are different, in that respect. I mean, well, 40, no, it is 46. I'm not counting New York, California, Illinois, and Maryland. Those aren't states.
They don't count.
So, those are republics.
The counter to this, though.
No, but
go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, here in South Carolina, it's very documented. If somebody's going to do that in their business, they can, but they have to post a certain type of sign of certain dimensions, a certain height above the ground. If any of those aren't valid, it carries no weight. If there's a little sign down by the kick plate on the door, nope, doesn't count. As a concealed carry licensee here, you have to know where to expect to see that when you're walking in the door, and if it's not done right, not your problem. So,
well,
just an example of the details that matter.
As Brent said, though, if you're carrying concealed and you don't act the fool, no one will ever know anything happened at all, other than they were accidentally protected without their knowing it. But there are things about personal liability and when do you intervene and when do you not intervene and and all that kind of stuff. But my personal rule is, if I'm in a place like that, a local business, and they have a sign, and I'm not in criminal violation of any laws, I would go in and be discreet. And just simply because it goes back to that old tried by 12 or carried by 6 thing that we talked about, I think, a show or two ago, is what right do these people have to tell me that I don't have a right to protect myself? And by rote, protect the people around me, So there is no definitive answer.
Yeah, well, it's property rights too,
Oh wait,
so they can
and another
they can
important
disallow
point
you
here,
from being on that property for lots of reasons.
Yeah, and a good point that I'm sure one of our viewers is screaming at the screen right at this moment, because I had this same thought that if I had any other options to go shop, I would have, because if they don't support me in the Second Amendment, I shouldn't support them. In this particular case, because of poor planning on the part of a man, that was the only store I'd be able to visit. So I grudgingly had to support them. But generally speaking, if a business, especially the real adamant ones that are very well documented as anti-gun corporate culture, I just choose not to support them. They don't support me. Why should I support them?
Mm-hmm. And let's turn this around. Is, Brent's business, you've got a taqueria, right? And you put a sign up that says no guns allowed in the store for whatever bizarre reason, Now, if one of your customers comes in and you see a bulge under his coat, I mean, what do you think about that? Because I'm trying to get behind the brain of the people who do this. Is it because they're politically correct? Is it because they're woke? Is it, or are they terrified of guns? Or, I don't understand these reasons. And in their minds, some of them could be valid. And I was just trying to think as a business owner, because I've owned businesses, I certainly have a right to restrict access, like you said a minute ago, to certain kinds of people. You know, don't come in here drunk, or, you know, we won't serve you unless you have your shoes on. And if some people don't want to serve you if you're carrying a gun, then I guess the default is what Brent said. Okay, you won't have my business.
Yeah. I know some people who write down, you know, they'll go somewhere else and they'll send a copy of the receipt to the business with the sign and say, I went here instead because I wasn't safe in your company.
It's a good idea.
You know?
That's a good idea.
Yep.
Well then, shall we invite everyone to comment? I'd be curious to hear what people say.
Absolutely. And I had one closing thought here that I'm thinking of my life experiences. If you go to a place and it says no guns, knives, or colors, you probably ought to heed that warning and just not go in there. If you don't know what colors are, look it up.
True.
That's not a place you want to go have a cocktail.
Good advice.
You get caught in the crossfire there, right?
Exactly.
You know, about 30 years ago, a fellow 45-70 shooter who I know, who's also an ammo collector, handed me what was, I think, like about 140 or 150-year-old 45-70 cartridge, black powder load. And he said, check this out. And I'm looking at it, and I said, wow, this is pretty cool. It's in pretty good condition and stuff, too. He said, you want to shoot it? And I said, really? You won't mind if I shoot this? And he said, no, go ahead. And I said, do you really even think it's going to go off? And he said, I think you might be surprised. He obviously must have shot some in his life. And so I loaded it into my trapdoor Springfield, and I almost didn't put my hearing on because there was no doubt in my mind it was going to go click, you know, or something. Well, son of a gun, it went boom, and a big cloud of 150-year-old black powder smoke, and then that 500 and some odd grain lead cartridge clanged my torso gong. And I confess, I believe, had there been a photo of me, my mouth would have been open and surprised. But that led me to do a little research, and as I was a gun writer at the time, and a policeman. And there was a lot of sort of just, you know, neighborhood gossip and stuff like that among shooters about what would cause ammo to go bad. And, oh, I wouldn't trust ammo if it got wet in the rain. Or, you know, my dad used to spray his with WD-40, but it would always die. And so what I did then was I made a couple of assignments and did some testing for myself. And I'll tell you, I learned some very interesting things. And that number one is, especially with factory loaded ammunition, you have to try really hard to make it not work, and even 50 or 100 years later. So, and to get this going even farther, an old guy used to live across the street from me, and he had loaded 1911 magazines wrapped up in it was like a foil that the military used to use for preservation. And so he gave them to me. And he had them from way before the war. So, you know, these were, I think, from World War I. He had them in World War II. So let's call these, at the time, 80-year-old ammunition. Corrosive primers, of course. Well, I unwrapped them. The magazines were pristine. The ammo looked good. I put them in a World War II era 1911 pistol, and I fired both magazines full perfectly. And so, you know, I think Brent, you asked me something about, you know, would you trust your life to 100-year-old ammunition? Well, I sure wouldn't want to stand in front of it. So, what's your guys' experience with this stuff?
I've had the same thing. I've shot some World War II stuff. I remember that foil you were talking about, and as long as it was kept in a cool, dry place, or even a warm, dry place, dry being the operative, the key there, it works just fine. Now, I've not tried to soak them in WD-40, and when you were sitting here talking about ammo, we've talked about it several times. I had to laugh because we've mentioned it a bunch. is the old coppers that they would bring out their reloads, and they hadn't shot them in years, and they were green and kind of blue from sweat and grime. And yeah, I wouldn't trust those even if they were only a year or two old.
They probably all fired though.
I had some.
Yeah.
I had ammo I picked up way back in 2019. I shot the other day. It worked just fine. So.
Who invited him? You know, well, you know when.
No, but seriously, I've routinely shot surplus rifle ammo from the 30s, and you know, so that puts it what 70, 90, 80, 90 years old, easy. Mm-hmm. A lot of 8mm back. Remember back when 8mm surplus was like a nickel a round? Yeah. Yeah. Now it's $14 a shot or something. I don't even know, but yeah, back in those days. Now, in fairness, a lot of those I did have, you know, a fair number of clicks. Never had a true hang fire. It either worked or it didn't. Now, is that an age thing? It was in good condition, you know, in cans and stuff. Or is that just this is really cheap surplus ammo?
I have had that experience with old ammunition like that. And what we did on the police department was we did have one on-duty shooting where a cop used to spray his gun with WD-40. It was a semi-auto 9mm. And over about a year and a half, it seems, he had also neglected to trade in his duty loads for fresh ammo during qualification. So they figured that was about a year and a half old ammunition, and he had been repeatedly doing this for some foolish reason to keep his gun nice, you know. Well, he was in a shooting and ended up shooting this guy multiple times, and it just wasn't really working. And of course, everyone lost their mind because it's 9mm failure. We had fairly recently transitioned to 9mm, but my friend Gene Wahlberg was the forensic firearms criminalist, and so he got the remaining ammunition and chronographed it. Well, it was chronographing at like 650, 700 feet per second. So it should have been about 1,100 feet per second. So it was just functioning enough that it actually was able to cycle his gun. But you can see what happened there. And Gene was able to identify the powder was actually contaminated from the WD-40. But you know, that was a bit of an unusual situation, and it had taken a real long time to do that. I made an assignment to a really senior, experienced, like ballistician who was a writer, and he did extensive testing with loaded ammunition and then with just prime cases. And I'll tell you what, over a period that went on for almost 30 days, what he found was factory loaded centerfire rifle and pistol ammunition in water was pretty safe out to about 2 weeks. You know, give or take a little bit, but and even after that, at the end of 30 days, he had most of them still fired with some degree of contaminated powder. And then now, if they were sealed like military type cartridges, there was no effect. 30 days, they all fired just fine. They all chronographed correctly. You know, where they do the lacquer seal around the cases. So. With the primers.
The nail polish?
It's like nail polish, yeah, but they actually use tar. Yeah. It's a tar base with military ammunition. But what I thought was really interesting is that he tried because there's an old adage where you say, oh, if you have to throw away loaded cases, squirt WD-40 in them and that'll deactivate the primers. Nope, not even a little bit. And I've done those tests here.
Tom,
go ahead.
Tom, let's circle back. You talk about using nail polish on your ammunition. Where do you get the nail polish, and what color is it?
Off his shelf in the bathroom.
Well, I get it at Ulta, and you know, I like it to look pretty. So.
Sometimes, you know, you want your gun to be pretty, right?
That's funny.
I've always thought that when you see primers with the little, you know, color lacquer finish around there to seal it, it's like, it looks like nail polish.
Well, that's like the what do they do?
It's tactical nail polish.
There you go.
What's that they do now? Oh, powder coat bullets. I know Tank. You know, one of our writers. Yeah. He sends me bullets all the time, and there's blue ones and red ones and you know purple ones, and it's kind of weird. But I think if I had to sum this up, is I would say that especially factory loaded ammo. You know, as long as what Brent said, where if you keep it in a cool, dry place, you know, not in your humid attic for years at a time, or your car, you know, trunk, It's pretty much a forever kind of a situation. I just shot some 44 special ammunition that I loaded with a Lee loader about 45 years ago. I just shot it the other day, and it just went bang perfectly fine and chronograph correct. It was still accurate, and I just thought, son of a gun. Now, like Brent, you brought up a good point. Would you rely on 100-year-old ammunition for personal defense? No, unless you had to. So okay. Well, let the questions begin. I think if any readers or listeners have questions, I'd love to see them posted. So, you guys got any closing thoughts?
Keep your powder dry.
Keep your powder dry.
Yep.
Hey, Roy, didn't you just get a new adult BB gun the other day?
Geez, you know, I'll tell you, just when I start thinking that you've learned something as editor of Guns Magazine, it's not a BB gun. You know, I asked our own resident air rifle and air gun guru, Tom, what I should buy for an accurate, powerful air rifle. I have a Air Force Condor SS-22, which I always thought was pretty good, and it is. And he said, no, you idiot, get a 25 because it's much more powerful. And I thought, well, how can a 25 be that much more powerful than a 22? This is air rifle stuff. Well, I got this gun, and as soon as I realized you could get 49 grain lead slugs that look like bullets and push them out at 1,000 feet per second plus, I was convinced. Tom, can you please explain this voodoo magic? Because I am impressed.
Well, first of all, those things can put an eye out, so be careful.
Yeah.
And lodge under the skin and cause a nasty infection.
Whew.
Absolutely. Oh, and the 25 calibers can cut down tree branches about yay big. Ask me how I know.
I remember reading that. Yeah,
it takes
a
few shots, but no. But you know, it's funny. It's kind of like the one caliber rule. It seems like, at least in the 25 to 22 rifle case. Like I've been tinkering with a 25 caliber air rifle for a while, and you get a single loader like that Air Force you're talking about right now, you can put pretty much anything at it. Actually, our friends over at Hunter's Supply, it turns out they are actually air gun gurus out there. They, viewers might be familiar with them. They make about 3 billion different types of cast bullets for handguns, rifles, and air guns, which I didn't know until somewhat recently. But they're real keen on that stuff, and they make, for example, in the 25 caliber realm, they make slugs. I won't even call them pellets. They're slugs all the way up to the 105 grain range. Roy, you need to get some of those.
I didn't realize that.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So I mean, that's we're talking some serious oomph in an air rifle now. So
well, you know, I have to already say I've shot these nasty gray squirrels with my 22 caliber Air Force, and I tend toward the heavier pellets, 21 grain pellets, and it kills them. But they kind of go like, oh, you got me, oh, and then they like run they run along the limb, and then they say, oh, I'm gonna die, and then they stiffen up for a second, and then they fall off on the ground, you know, and kick their legs a couple times, and it's like, I really don't like that, you know. I mean, maybe if I had better pellets or was a better shot, it would be okay. Well, I'm here to tell you, I shot a squirrel with this 25, and talk about dead right there. I mean, it looked like you shot an Impala with a 375 H&H Magnum. It just like, boom, right through him, you know, blood and guts on the tree. I just like stopped for a minute. Even the dog was with me, and Scout like looked down at the squirrel, looked up at me, and looked back down at the squirrel. She was like going, what the hell? You know, so anyway, I don't know. I'm easily impressed, but it's pretty darn cool. And I think that you don't just need a 25, you need a 22, you need a 177 too. But now I've learned, though, that the 177, which I used to think that's really all you need, it's like, no, this is like, this is like shooting a 308 and a 22. So
that's the 177's your garage caliber, right?
Yeah.
But well, you think about the 25, those, well, let's go back, a 22 long rifle. you know, at 800 to 1,000 feet per second is what, like 85 to 100 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. Everybody likes to talk about foot-pounds, right? You convert that to a 25 caliber air rifle, you know, with a 48 grain slug like you were talking about going 900 feet per second. We're talking about 85 foot-pounds of muzzle energy, and depending.
Yeah, the difference was huge. I even noticed shooting cardboard. When you shoot with a 177, you don't even really hear it hit the target or anything. But when you shoot with a 25, you hear it go thwack. It's like, what? I have a 100-yard gong. It's a torso gong. And I mean, it's not even a game. You just shoot it anywhere you want, as often as you want. And I do need to get one of those power pneumatic pump things, though, because 3,000 PSI.
Power pneumatic.
You know, those electric, you know, plug them in and it does it magically, you know, because this hand pump when you're an old compressor, there it is, the technical word. Yeah,
okay, got it.
This hand pump for
what on earth are you talking about?
I don't know. But the hand pump for the old guy, that's hard to do. So, well, Tom, if you had to give a line of advice to someone, it's like, okay, they've got the Brent Wheat BB gun, and maybe they've got a break barrel 177. And now they hear all about this pre-charged pneumatic stuff. What would you tell them? Like, what was the next step for somebody like that?
I think I'm a snob with PCP, pre-charged pneumatic rifles. And those are, you know, for air gun beginners, those are the ones that have an onboard air reservoir tank of some sort. You know, and the Air Force that you have, the buttstock is made out of a mini scuba tank, right? In other ones, it's a long, skinny tube under the barrel, so it looks kind of like a shotgun magazine. You know, there are different styles of that, but the basic idea is you're carrying around a load of really highly compressed air, usually, you know, 3,000 or more pounds per square inch of compressed air to give you multiple shots out of that handgun or rifle. So they'll spoil you rotten because they're just buttery smooth, you know, multiple shots, lots of power. And the good ones are just shockingly accurate.
Boy,
so
you are right. I mean,
you can't go wrong with that.
I chase, well, sub 1 inch at 50 yards is pretty easy if it's not windy. Now, Omrex makes that one. What's the one that they, I can't think of the name of. It's Gauntlet. Is it the Gauntlet? I think it's called the Gauntlet.
Yeah, the Gauntlet is a.
I mean, it's like $300.
And they make it in multiple calibers.
A terrific value. I got one of those.
Yeah, and it's with the 177, you get something like 90 shots before you have to refill the onboard air. I mean, that's a lot of air gunning on a charge.
It's a lot of hot air. It sounds like the gun crank.
Cool stuff.
Brent, promise us you will get a real air gun. Would you please?
One. If our friends at Umarex are out there, I want one. I'll never disparage BB guns again. And I got to say, I haven't had much to say on this particular segment, but I've been sitting here just chuckling inwardly. All I can see is Roy and Scout the Wonder Dog standing there going, damn, look at that.
Dang.
It was like, what the hell, you know?
You know what I'm thinking? If we could only find a way to harness Brent's hot air, can you imagine the foot-pounds we could generate? I mean, 500 grain slugs,
triggered.
Easy.
I'm hurt. See, there's a heart in here. Here somewhere.
Somewhere.
We'll have to figure out a way to harness that energy, though. So, Brent, don't forget, though, call our friends at Umarex and get a Gauntlet 22 caliber and report back.
I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, guys, it was a fun show for us. I hope the viewers enjoyed it too. It was great getting together and yakking and chatting, and as Tom said, sharing some of our hot air. And I will say that plurally.
Speak for yourself.
Well, make sure when you're not watching the Gun Cranks and building a small religious shrine to the greatness of this program, please check out Guns Magazine at gunsmagazine.com, or hopefully on your favorite newsstand. And I would be remiss if I didn't throw it over to Tom McHale from that other magazine, our sister publication, American Handgunner.
Why don't you ever say American Handgunner magazine first?
Because I don't work for American Handgunner.
Okay. Hey, But
He's fickle. He's
the other
fickle.
thing folks need to know is we just released our annual DIY gunsmithing issue. This thing is chock full of how-to and information from beginner to advanced. Customization, jazzing up your guns, making guns from scratch even. All kinds of great stuff in there. So check for that at your local retailer, and it will soon be available at Amazon as well.
Excellent. As Tom said, it is chock full of DIY. So check out gunsmagazine.com. I'm sorry, let me do this again. So check out AmericanHandgunner.com and gunsmagazine.com, and of course our wonderful sister publication, AmericanCop.com, and all of our various social media platforms. And make sure you share it with your friends. Say some nice things on your social media, whether you mean it or not. We need all the help we can get. So, on behalf of Tom McHale from American Handgunner Magazine and our retired boss, the affable Roy Huntington, I'm Brent Wheat, editor of Guns Magazine. Get out there and get shooting.